In June of 1962, 9 men in Washington decided a public school could not start a boy's morning with a prayer. The case was Engel against Vitale. I was 11 that fall in Aliquippa, Pennsylvania, a steelworker's son. We used to stand at our desks, heads down, and hold still a full minute before anything started. That September we came back and we did not. They struck 1 minute, but it was the one the whole morning leaned on, and the rest fell away, a rule at a time. That morning is where working-class boys like me got made. Number 30 was gone from the schools by that fall in '62. Number 2 outlasted it by 20 years, and it is the one almost nobody said out loud. And number 1 is the one they never managed to put a date on. It was the whole point of all the rest. Call them manners if you want. They were really what made a boy unbreakable. Number 30, the still minute. A room full of boys on their feet at their desks, heads down, not a sound, before a word of arithmetic. In most schools it was a prayer, and that was the minute the Supreme Court struck in 1962. But watch what we lost. Those 60 seconds taught a boy to hold his own body still on purpose, before the day grabbed him. A boy who can do that at 8 can do it at 40, in a room full of men shouting. Number 29. You stood when the teacher walked in, the whole room at once, and you did not sit until you were told. Nobody put that one in front of a court. It just went soft once the center of the morning was gone. And within a few years of that fall, the boys behind me barely looked up when a teacher came in. Standing was how a boy gave a man respect before he had decided whether he liked him. Number 28. You recited out loud, on your feet, in front of the whole room, times tables, a verse, the capitals, said standing, looking out, not down at your shoes. That went the same way within a few years of '62, and the boys a few years younger were never stood up to speak at all. It taught a boy to use his voice before he was old enough to be afraid of it. I have sat beside men with letters after their names who could not do that. Number 27, you were up before anyone called you. The good boys in my neighborhood were on their feet at the first gray light, no hand on the shoulder, no second holler up the stairs. Being woken was for small children. A boy who could wake himself had taken the first piece of his life into his own hands, and it changed how he walked. Number 26, the bed got made before you left the room, and it got made tight. My mother could bounce a coin off mine, or I heard about it. A made bed in a house nobody important would ever see. But it was the first finished thing of the day, done right when it would have been easier to do it fast. Number 25, face and neck washed at the basin in cold water, January the same as June. We did not all have hot water on tap, so the cold was simply what there was. Still, a boy who put his face in it at 6 in the morning learned a thing no warm shower will teach. The day is going to be uncomfortable, and you go to meet it anyway. You do not stand at the edge of the cold working up your nerve. You put your face in. The next few were the ones done in the dark, before a boy had any business being awake. Number 24. The chores came before school, not after. You fed the stove, you carried the coal up, you hauled the water, you saw to whatever animals the family kept, and you did it before you ate. After school you were tired and the light was going and the work would not get done right, and everybody knew it. So it went in the morning, when a boy least wanted to do it and most needed to learn that he could. I have watched grown men come apart in retirement because nobody needed anything from them by 7 anymore. A boy used to learn early that the day asks first before it gives you a thing. Number 23, you presented yourself before the day started. Collar straight, shoes wiped, hands where they could be seen. In my school, a teacher walked the rows the first minute. It sounds like fuss now, and honestly some of it was, but a boy learned to put himself in front of the world ready, before the world had to ask. My grandfather wiped his boots at the back step every morning of his life, going to work where they would be black again by 7. I asked him once why. He looked at me like I was simple. You start clean, he said. Then he went, number 22. You spoke first to your elders, and you used the name. Good morning, Mr. Kowalski, before he had to notice you standing there. The boy greets the man, not the other way around. It put the boy in the position of offering something, which is exactly where you want a boy, because a boy who waits to be greeted is a boy waiting to be told who he is. The one who speaks first has already decided. I still catch myself doing it to men 20 years younger than me. They look startled. They are not used to being greeted by name by anybody. Number 21. Whatever was on the plate, you ate it fast, and you said nothing. Some mornings it was bread and drippings, and you said thank you for the bread and drippings. Everybody was hungry. The hunger was fine. What you were not allowed to do was complain about it. Number 20. You walked in whatever the sky was doing, and you got there before the bell. 1.5 miles, in my case, in shoes that were not made for snow. There was no bus for most of us, and no notion that weather was a reason. You buttoned your coat and you went. I am not going to pretend that built character all by itself. Plenty of it was just that nobody had a car. But you went, sleet or shine, because the day was not asking how you felt about it. Let me step out of the list for a minute. Picture a man this morning, 70-some years old, in an apartment in any town in this country. He is awake at 5 because the morning will not let go of him even now. But there is nothing the morning needs from him. No stove to feed, no boy to get up, no shift to make. He makes his coffee in the quiet and he sits. Around 9 he calls the pharmacy, and a young voice he has never met calls him by his first name, the way you would talk to a child, and asks how he is doing today. He says fine. He is not fine, but that is not what the question was for. He spent 70 years starting his own mornings and answering to his own name, Mr., and now the whole world has decided that the morning and the name and the standing up were old fuss it was glad to be rid of. He turned out to be the fuss. That is the part that is hard to say. Number 19. You sat up, back off the chair, both feet flat, the first hour at least. A slouching boy got a word, or worse in those days. It reads as petty now. Grown men minding a child's spine. But the body teaches the mind, and that lesson sets early, or it does not set at all. Number 18. Your pencil was sharpened, your tools laid out, your desk set before the bell, not after it rang and the lesson was waiting on you. You came ready. A boy who shows up with a dull pencil is telling the room he expects somebody else to mind his readiness, and the men who ran those mornings would not have it. It is the smallest version of a rule that runs all the way up to a man on a job site at dawn with his truck already loaded. The next one is harder, and a lot of you will argue with me about it. Number 17. In the first hour, you did not speak until you were spoken to. This one chafes people now, and I understand why. It sounds like teaching a boy to be silent and small, but that is not what it taught. A boy who can hold a thought without blurting it learns that not everything in his head needs to come out his mouth the second it arrives, and a man who never learned that is exhausting to be around. You all know one. He never had a morning that made him wait. Number 16. Your clothes were set out the night before, so the morning had no scramble in it. Shirt on the chair, shoes by the bed, socks inside the shoes. A small thing a man does at night for the man he will be at dawn, half asleep and not wanting to think. The deciding was already done, so the morning stayed calm. This next one I have thought about my whole life, and it is the one I would give a young father if he let me give him only one. Number 15. If you had a younger one, you got them there too. This was not asked twice, and it was not praised. You walked your little brother or your sister to the school door, you did not lose them, you did not let the bigger boys at them, and you delivered them. I did it for my sister Margaret for 3 years. She was 6 when she started, and I was 10. And I held her hand at the one bad crossing on Franklin Avenue where the coal trucks came through, and I let go of it half a block from the school so the other boys would not see, and she let me, because even at 6 she understood that a boy had his pride. I thought it was just a chore, the worst part of my morning. I did not understand until I was a father myself that my mother had handed me, at 10 years old, another whole human being to keep alive for 20 minutes a day, and that I had done it every day and that something in me had quietly decided I was a person who could be trusted with that. You cannot tell a boy he is reliable. You hand him something and let him find out. Number 14. The hat came off the second you crossed a threshold, a boy's cap the same as a man's. You did not have to be told twice past the age of about 6. It marked the line between outside and inside, between the rough world and a room where people were, and a boy who felt that line learned there were places that asked something of him. We have lost the line. Men wear the hat to the dinner table now in their own mother's house. I have seen it. Number 13. You got sent on the errand before school with money in your fist, to the baker, to the corner store, to carry something to a neighbor, trusted to go and come back and bring the right change. What a boy carried home in his fist was the family's trust, handed to him with the coins and to be brought back intact, and a boy can feel the weight of that like it has a temperature. They do not get that now. We do everything for them and then wonder why they take so long to grow up. In June of 1962, the Supreme Court handed down Engel against Vitale, and a year later, in a second case, it ended the Bible reading too. I was a boy for the first and a teenager for the second, and I want to be careful here because this is where men start shouting, and I am not going to. The court was deciding a real question, whether a government can put words of prayer in a child's mouth, and reasonable men land on both sides of it, and it is not my fight. Here is only what I watched happen, standing in it. They took out the one fixed minute at the front of the morning, and they did not put a different fixed minute in its place. They put nothing there, take your seats and open your books, and the morning lost its hinge. Inside 10 years, the standing was gone, and the reciting was gone, and the whole shape had come loose. And not because anyone banned those, the thing they all hung on had been quietly lifted out, and the fathers could only hold the rest together at home for so long. If any of this is landing, if you had a morning like this, or you have spent years wishing you had given your sons one, stay with me. I put one of these out every week. There are not many rooms left where these mornings get said out loud, and I would rather not say them to an empty one. Subscribe, and sit with the rest of us who still wake before the alarm for no reason anyone can name. Here is where the list turns, and where I owe you some honesty. Number 12. You took correction in the morning without flinching, and you did not talk back. A boy who fouled up at the start of the day answered for it then and there, took the word or the consequence, and moved on without sulking it into the afternoon. That one made hard men, but I am not going to sit here and tell you all of it was clean. Some of the men who ran those mornings were teaching a boy to govern himself, and a few of them just liked the power and called it discipline because the word covered it. Every boy in the room knew which kind of man he had, and a morning run on fear builds nothing worth keeping. We do not have to pretend it was all noble to miss the part of it that was. Number 11. If you had done something wrong the day before, you owned it in the morning, first thing, before you were caught and before you could talk yourself out of it overnight. You went to the man and said it plain. Boys understood that a thing left unsaid got heavier in the dark, and that the only way to set the day down light was to walk straight at the worst of it before breakfast. I have known men who never learned this, who carried small, unsaid things for 40 years until they had a whole life made out of them. The next one runs on the same idea, and it is the one that separates the men who finish things from the men who only start them. Number 10. You finished yesterday's job before you started today's. The chore left half done, the homework ducked, the thing you had put off that got cleared in the morning first before the new day's work was allowed to begin. No fresh start on top of an unpaid debt. A boy learned that the day does not wipe the slate for you. You wipe it. Number 9. On the way, you carried the heavy thing for whoever could not. The widow's coal, the old man's groceries up the stoop, the smaller kid's books when his arm was in a sling. You did it on the way without being asked, and you did not wait to be thanked, because waiting to be thanked spoils it. Those were the men who held a neighborhood together. We notice them now mostly by the hole they leave. Number 8. You shook a man's hand in the morning and looked at his eyes while you did it. Your teacher, the foreman if you worked, the man at the shop, a real grip, a dry palm, a steady look from a boy. It was the first transaction of the day, and it told a man whether you were present or somewhere else, whether you could be dealt with. A boy practiced it every morning until it was simply how he met the world. I can still read more about a man in 3 seconds of his handshake than in an hour of his talking. Number 7. The job you dreaded got done first, before the easy ones. If there were 3 things to do before school, and one of them turned your stomach, that was the one you did at the top, in the dark, before you had time to build it up in your head. The men who taught us this knew something. A dreaded thing only grows while you leave it sitting. Do it first, while it is still small, and the rest of the morning runs downhill. I have run my whole life on that one rule, and on the mornings I forgot it, I paid. The next 2 are the ones the best men live by. Number 6. When the morning's work got handed out, the boy worth anything took the worst of it without waiting to be told. The cold job, the dirty job, the one the others were quiet about, hoping to dodge. He stepped up to it, not for praise, because there usually was not any. He had figured out young that a man who takes the hard job on purpose is never the man standing around waiting to be told what to do. And those are about the only 2 kinds of men there are in a working morning. He picked which kind he would be at 10. Number 5. In a lot of houses, one person got up first in the cold and made the place warm before anybody else had to face it. In mine, it was my father, a steel worker up at 4:30, and the first thing he did was see to the stove, so that when my mother and the rest of us came down, the kitchen was already warm. He never mentioned it. For years, I did not even know he did it. I just knew the kitchen was warm, the way you know the sun came up. That is the highest form of this whole list, the work done so early and so quiet that the people it is done for never even know to thank you. They grow up in a warm house thinking that is how the world is. Number 4. You did not announce that you were cold or tired or hungry in the morning line. Everybody was. Saying it just put your weakness in the air for no gain and made the morning harder for the boy beside you who was holding his own in. So you held yours. Now, I will give the critics this much. This is the one that went too far in some men, the ones who held it in so well that they never told a soul when something was wrong until it was too late to help them. The rule was right, and it cost a few good men dearly. Both of those things are true. Number 3. The best of them were ready early and waiting, not scrambling at the last second. Coat on, lunch in hand, standing by the door a good 10 minutes before they had to leave, calm. There was an old letter carrier in our parish, a quiet man, and the thing people said about him was that in 30 years he was never once seen hurrying. People did not say it because he was slow. The man was simply never behind, and a man who is never behind never has to hurry. Number 2. This is the one I told you the men rarely said out loud, and here it is. There were boys who got up before everybody, in the true dark, and did a man's work before school, and never mentioned it. He did not bring it up among his friends, and he certainly did not do it to make a girl notice. A boy whose father was dead or hurt or gone, up at 4 to fire a neighbor's furnace for a few cents, or to milk before the walk to school, or to mind the little ones because his mother had already left to clean other people's houses. Then he came in and sat down at his desk like every other boy and said nothing. You only found out by accident, years later, from somebody else. I worked 20 years beside a man and did not learn until his funeral that he had run a paper route and tended a coal cellar from the age of 9 to keep his family fed, and had never said one word about it in 60 years. The men who carried the most carried it quietest. The ones who needed you to know how hard their morning was were usually the ones whose morning was easiest. And number 1, after all of it, the standing and the washing and the chores in the dark and the hard job done first, here is the one underneath them all, the first thing they taught a boy and the last thing a man forgot. You do the thing that has to be done at the moment it has to be done, whether you feel like it or not, and you do not wait for anyone to make you. That is the whole of it. Every other rule on this list was just a particular morning's way of teaching that one. The made bed, the cold water, the dreaded chore done first, every one of them was the same lesson taught a different way before breakfast. Govern your own morning when no one is watching and no one will ever know, and you have already won the part of the day that decides the rest. They could ban the prayer, and they could let the standing go and the reciting go and the whole shape come loose, but this one they could never touch because it was never written on a wall or said out loud. It was never a matter of a strong body. It was built into a boy one cold morning at a time until it was simply who he was. And a man built that way does not break easy. That is the unbreakable part, and it was the morning that made it, doing its quiet work year after year, long before the rest of the world was up to notice. I still wake before the light. 11 years old in Aliquippa, or 75 in a too-quiet house, the morning still has me, and I still make the bed, with the corners tight, with no one to see it, and no reason on earth to do it. I do it because a morning a long time ago put it in me, back before any court got involved. I am not angry at the court. That was their fight, not mine. I am only an old man who got the last of something, watched the boys behind me get none of it, and learned too late that the warm kitchen I woke up in was not how the world is. It was how my father made it, in the dark, before any of us were up. Somebody has to be up first in the cold. For most of the history of the world, somebody always was.